Welcome to the Farm to School podcast, where you will hear stories of how youth thrive and farmers prosper when we learn how to grow, cook, and eat delicious, nutritious local foods in schools across the country
and the world. Hello, everybody. We're your hosts. I'm Rick Sherman.
And I'm Michelle Markestein. And today we are excited to welcome a true Farm to School champion. Hello, Miguel.
Hello.
Miguel, will you please introduce yourself and tell us what your official title is?
Yes. So my name is Miguel Villareal, and my official current title is Interim Co-Executive Director for the National Farm to School Network, where I've been in a role for the last 2 years.
And you have had an incredible journey getting to the place you are now. Would you be willing to share a little of your story with us?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for asking, Michelle. Before we go too far along, I'm super excited about being here with both of you, and so glad that you're doing this podcast. It's something that's definitely needed in order to get the messages out from all these great people out there doing this great work, as you said in your introduction, and from the farm to school movement. So my journey actually began at a very young age. I was born into farm. It wasn't called farm to school, but it was definitely in the farming world. My parents were migrant farm workers. I was actually born in Idaho. We live in Texas. So my parents, for 2 generations, had been migrating from Texas to Idaho and to California and to North Dakota, Minnesota, and all these places. And so actually for the first 17 years of my life, spent a lot of time in the fields and actually working in the fields and getting to meet farmers and so forth at the age of 12, when most kids start working alongside their families. And so I think those early impressions that I had, they were all, as hard as we were working, as hard as all farm workers work, it was also some good experiences for me in terms of spending time with my family, my extended family, and also getting to meet these incredible farmers that even at a very young age, I recall that symbiotic relationship that I didn't know existed. I remember recognizing that at a very young age. And just for me, I also, because I was doing that kind of work, knew that that's not the work I wanted to do my entire life. This is extremely difficult. And so I had the good fortune to early on, and I don't know where these seeds were planted, but they were planted along the way, and that is the love for nutrition and food and how food interacts with our body. So from a very young age, I was interested in herbs and healthy foods. And I was a kid that stopped drinking sodas at like the age of 12 and started introducing a lot of fresh foods to my own family. And I also knew at a young age that I wanted to study nutrition. I didn't know it was called nutrition until years later, and I did at the age of 17 did enroll in a university and earned a degree in food and nutrition, and then we'll talk about the next phase.
Yeah, what was that next phase?
Yeah, so the next phase was Michelle. I thought I'm going to take all this knowledge, all this passion, and I want to work with athletes, because I've always been interested in as an athlete as well, even though I wasn't the greatest athlete, but I loved athletics and I wanted to help athletes do better in their profession, if you will. And as it turned out, I should tell you real quick. As it turned out, when I was in college, I also worked in a hospital, and as a diet tech intern. And I knew, Michelle and Rick, that at that time that I did not want to be a dietitian. At that point, dietitians had a calling for people that were in the hospital that were sick. And for me, I remember thinking at a very young age, at the age of 21, 22. I don't know what job I'm going to have, but it's something to keep people out of these hospitals. And as it turned out, my professor in college says, "Hey, Miguel, they're looking for a nutritionist with the Dallas Independent School District. You should apply." And I did apply. I had no idea that there was even a career in school food services. But I spent 8 years in the Dallas Independent School District as one of their coordinators, administrators, and so forth. And it was at that time that really my roots were really starting to develop in terms of school food services and the impact that we could have on children's lives, the impact that we could have on families' lives, the impact that we could have on our teachers' lives, and the impact, and honestly, on community in general, through a school food service program, by simply educating everybody in the school food system and outside of it, and ensuring that educate about healthy foods, educate about where foods come from, and educating around the work that we were doing to ensure that the foods that we were buying, that we were purchasing, were helping children be their best while they were in school. So it was at that time in Dallas that I started forming those roots and decided that this is going to be my career. And no longer was I thinking about athletes. I was thinking about everybody, whether it be young. I figured these young kids are going to grow up to be athletes. These young kids are going to grow up to be our future leaders, whether they in the business world, in the arts world, in the science world, so forth. And we need to make sure that they're ready to enter into this next phase of their life. And by ready, I said they are at their healthiest. So I just took all that passion that I had from a very young age and started pouring it into my job as a school food service director. I worked in Dallas, and I worked in another district there in Texas, Victoria, small for 3 years, and then I went to work at a school district in northern Texas called Plano. And then I left Texas and moved out to California, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well.
Miguel, it's funny listening to you, like how alike our paths. My personal journey and yours, it almost seems the same. I was a sports psych minor in college, working with athletes, and a college athlete, and a food service director for 20 years too. So we're cut from the same cloth, I think.
I think we are. we are definitely brothers in spirit.
Yeah,
I had
right
no
on.
idea. Yeah, great. I'm glad to hear that. You and I need to spend some time together. Really,
yeah, right.
Really
we do. Yeah,
stories.
That's why we do this podcast, so we can meet people.
Exactly.
And so kind of bring us to California too, because that's where I started interacting with you and getting to see some of the extraordinary things you were doing there.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. I mean, when I was trying to implement all these healthy food initiatives in Texas and back in the 90s. And it was so much opposition back then. And I wouldn't say opposition. It wasn't about the health of students. It was about the financial bottom line which is important, definitely, for school food services, but not at the expense of children's health. I was in my last school district that I was in, and at that time in the 90s, there were lots of bottling companies signing contracts with school districts and selling sodas in schools and vending machines and so forth. And it was for me, that was the nail, if you will, that sealed it for me in terms of like, I can't do this anymore. My business manager said, "Hey, Miguel, we just signed a contract with the bottling company, and I need you to oversee that whole, the sales and the placement of vending machines and so forth." And I thought, no, that's not going to be me. I'm sorry. I am out of here. I mean, this is not going in the direction. So anyway, I ended up stepping away and find myself out here in California. I also have a master's in business administration, so I thought I'll work for a small school district. as a business manager, but at the time there wasn't any opportunities, and the district where I got hired was looking for a school food service director. And even though I reluctantly took the job, I took it. And so, Michelle, this is my epiphany at the time. It was in Marin County, which is a county surrounded by over 60 at the time certified organic farms. And I remember looking at the menus the first day and I was talking to my team, and I said, okay, so where I had been in the area now for 6 months in California and knew about all these farms in the area. I said, so what farms are we buying our food from? Because I just thought that's what Californians did. And they said, we don't buy any food from any local farms. We get it from one of our distributors. And I said, so what about these farms in the area? I said, no, we don't. It's too expensive. It's just one excuse after the other as to why they weren't doing it. And I said, all right, so let me see the rest of your menu. And the rest of the menu, Michelle and Rick, it was the exact menus we had just left from Texas, which included a lot of highly processed foods. And even sodas being sold in vending machines. So I went directly to my supervisor that same day. That's when I supervised the person that hired me. I said, look, this is why I left Texas. And I told the story that I just told you. And I said, I'd be happy to remain in this position, in this role, but we need to change. We need to change what's being served and how we're approaching our school food service program. I happen to be in a opportune situation, and that the person that had hired me also had the same mindset, and said to me, the only thing she said to me at the time, she says, Miguel, I'm going to support you in your initiatives, and I know you're going to need some help along the way. She said, I only ask one thing: keep us in the black. Don't let us go into the red. Mm-hmm. Well, I had enough business back sense to know that I could do that. But the next 20 years, Michelle, it was I spent in implementing, initiating, and bringing farm to school programs. It wasn't called farm to school. Farm to school. You've done a recent podcast with Anupama Joshi. I didn't even know Anupama Joshi in those days in 2002. But it was when I learned about the National Farm to School Network, that's when I learned about these other food service directors around the country that were at the time just initial phases of farm to school, and saying, I had no idea. I thought I was, again, like I was in Texas. I thought I was one of a few people that were working these initiatives, and I learned that there were others, and that networking opportunity with other organizations, as you well know, just fed, if you will, our program with positive reinforcement, and allowed us to network and apply best practices with other school districts that were doing the same here in California and around the country.
Well, and to that, talking of the next chapter, after 2 decades in that space, and I know you were learning from folks, but everyone around the country was also inspired by and learning from what you were doing at the district level. And now you find yourself as co-executive director of National Farm to School Network. Tell us what it's like at the helm of a national movement.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'm loving this work because I've correlated it all along to the same work that I did as a school food service director. And what I did differently for the first 20 years as a school food service director in Texas versus what I did out here in California was I started expanding my reach in the community. So, I just simply said, who's missing from my farm to school table? Who's at the table at the moment? And who's missing from the table? And so, for example, teachers and parents and community leaders and health allied organizations and universities and and farmers and hopefully I said students and on and on and on. This collaboration, this bringing together of forces through the school food service program, working with a lot of different partners. It was the way that we were able to improve the programs in our community, and really bringing everybody to the table, and making sure that we all understood the message and what does farm to school represent. And so in this role as a co-executive director for the National Farm to School Network, I see the very same role, in that the network, the National Farm to School Network, is a convener, if you will, of partners that we have around the country. And so we're able to bring people together, partners together, partner organizations that represent many other individuals in their communities. And again, making sure that we have this shared vision, this shared message, this shared way of communicating farm to school to everyone. And what I've learned is that these messages have to be repeated over and over and over. Rick and I were having a conversation earlier saying, when people say, well, tell me about farm to school. I hadn't even heard what farm to school is.
Right.
And so even people that are in the know, that have been involved, don't understand the complete picture of what farm to school, the opportunity that you have to build community and really change a community, just like we did in the community that I worked in for all those years, to get to a point where everybody understands. It was the first time, Rick, in my career as a school food service director, that I had heard teachers say to me, we are seeing a difference in the classroom because of the foods that these children are eating. We are seeing a difference because, in terms of they knew that the amount of highly processed food that we had removed from our program. In fact, we started tracking data on the highly processed food and the introduction of healthy food. And our teachers were seeing the effects. Our principals were seeing the effects. The parents were seeing the impact. Again, nurses. And I mean, it was all qualitative data, but it was data that was evident. For someone like me that's passionate about nutrition and to hear that was music to my ears. But it took a good 30 years before I heard somebody say that back to me, because we weren't providing the right fuel for these students.
Well, thank you for that. That's the message, isn't it? That's our goal. It's one of the reasons why we started this podcast, is to get that word out there. So thanks for sharing.
And talking about shared messages, what are some examples of those shared messages? Things I've heard relate to values-aligned school meals, or
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely, Michelle. I mean, you hit the target on the head. It's like, since for about 3 decades, as a school food service director, we were promoting and engaging with legislators, both at the national level and at the state level, to pass legislation, if you will, that would bring universal meals to schools. Well, that means all students would have access to a meal. For many reasons, that was so important. Many reasons in terms of making sure that children were being fed, but also making sure that any social stigmas, that all children are treated equally. I mean, for some of us that had that, and I was one of those kids that had that experience, that you are treated differently by your peers in terms of, oh, so you're on the free lunch program, so you must come from a poor family, or so on and so forth. But it means like food shouldn't be something that stigmatized.
Right?
No, not at all. I mean, it's something that it's a time to socialize. So when we started passing those laws, and we have 8 states that have passed them, California being one of them. To your point, Michelle, we have arrived, if you will, at the starting line. Great, we passed universal meals. Great. So what's the next iteration? The next iteration is what we call values-aligned procurement, and that means that that school food service programs are ensuring that the food that now that all children are eating, So now we're trying to be socially responsible as well for everybody's nourishment, and making sure that all children are being served the best foods possible within the budgets that school food service programs are giving. So values align. Procurement. So values align. So children's health is one thing, but it's also supporting local economies. So you're supporting farmers. You're supporting the employees that work in the school food service program. You're giving them the resources to be able to do the jobs that they do best. You're also thinking and looking at the environmental impact. So, how far is food traveling? Could I potentially remove some things from my menu that were, potentially harmless to the environment? You're also thinking about animal welfare. And for example, out here, lots of talk about regenerative farming practices. For me and for this organization, the National Farm to School Network, is making sure that we are racially. We're looking at racial equity across all scopes in a community. And Michelle, I'll just tell you, when I started 20 years ago, I wasn't using even equity. I didn't. It's like as a concept, it was like, we need to do this because it's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. But now there's common language. It's the educators use equity for making sure that children are educated, all educated, but no one I recall had been using the word food equity or even nourishment as a way of making addressing equity. So it's those the common language is now this values aligned procurement practices that we're trying to get food service programs and all communities thinking along those lines and speaking the same language and understanding what the meaning behind that is.
That's having a common language, to that point, helps people literally get on the same page and collaborate, coordinate, catalyze together. And I'm sure people are really inspired by things you're saying, are going to want to get involved. What are some things people can do?
Yeah, thank you. Perfect segment to that. So one of the things that I've been saying all along with the National Farm to School Network, just like again, using my lived experience as a school food service director, is that in order to get to this next level, is that we need people at that table, right? So the National Farm to School Network, one of the things that we say is bringing partners. So you can go to our website at farmtoschool.org. And become a partner. You sign up for organizations or for school districts or for really anyone that has the same vision that wants to accomplish these things. So we have what we say, we need partners. Why? So we can continue to expand the work, and the National Farm to School Network can continue to connect these organizations to each other, and to resources and education and so on and so forth. And then on top of that, Michelle, the other thing is membership. Now, these things that I'm talking about are at no cost with the National Farm to School Network, but we provide a weekly newsletter. We provide information about, everything that's going on around the nation in terms of farm to school. But membership is important as in any social activism that you're trying to push along, is that you need voices at the table, and the more voices that you have, this awareness about what's happening, we can move this needle, if you will, or the bar. We can raise the bar, continue to raise the bar by having more people engaged. When I say more people, not only school food services employees and staff and farmers, but also our parents and our teachers and our health allied organizations and students and just community at large, because it's this awareness building. And the National Farm to School Network has been serving that role. We have 20,000 members at the moment.
Wow.
In the National Farm to School Organization. I'd like to see that double, triple, even quadruple over this next year and even into the future.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that. Miguel, I'm going to leave links to what you said, the National Farm to School Network, other things that you've dropped in our show notes. Also put a link in there about the previous episode that we mentioned about Anupama Joshi. If people want to listen to more on the roots of the National Farm to School Network and how it was created, kind of an interesting deep dive on that. But I would like just to thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you to both of you, and I wish you all the success.
Thank you, Miguel, and thank you for sharing your story with us. And we'd like to thank you all for listening today. Farm to School was written, directed, and produced by Rick Sherman and Michelle Markiston, and was made possible by a grant from the United States Department of Agriculture.
The content and ideas on the Farm to School podcast does not necessarily reflect the opinions of Oregon State University, Oregon Department of Education, and the United States Department of Agriculture, or the National Farm to School Network. The USDA, Oregon Department of Education, and Oregon State University are equal opportunity providers and employers.
Do you want to learn more about Farm to School? Who doesn't want to learn more about Farm to School? Check out our other episodes, show notes, and contact information by searching up Farm to School Podcasts OSU.
We would love to hear from you. Stop by that website Michelle just mentioned to say hello, and please give us an idea for a future podcast.
Thanks again, Miguel. This time with you is a gift.
Thank you.